Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I have my microphone closer to me a bit today because actually I just realized I'm on my headphones, so the microphone should be fine. Yesterday it seemed like it was a little messed up in the beginning of the video. So what I had said that I was going to cover was yesterday I covered having people work with the tools that are in Illustrator in order to kind of get yourself used to what tools you're working with, and then to get to used to how you're working with them. So I'm going to share my screen over to my Illustrator. And you can see right here, I actually have the layer document that I was telling you guys about. This is similar to a mandala. This is my version. And I have done other round shapes, which I'll show you. I have them in my shop, so I can show you guys some photos of them. I was looking for them and I wasn't able to really get them ready for showing off on the camera. So I have them in a box somewhere and I'm not sure which one. So right now you can see I've got, here, let me get this window over on the other side so I can, there we go. Okay, so you can see over here in my properties and over here in my layers. So the layers is what I basically use to show every single one of the layers that I expect to see in the final finished product. So for the finished product, I keep hearing a chime. I'm sorry. I think it made a meeting room that, or a room that you have to be allowed into, which wasn't my intent. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, so we'll keep going. So anyway, in this document, you can see that I've got the various layers. In here, you can see that it's planned for inlay. I don't have that turned on right now. So if I turn that on, you can see that these two triangles are actually something that I'm gonna cut out and then inlay when I get to actually doing this in wood. So, and of course, now my Illustrator's not responding. Great, because I'm live, I'm sure. Let's come back to that. That may be a screen share issue. So I know I've got Photoshop open as well. Let me quit out of that. I've been working on all my listings, so you can see it there. Let me see here. Let me come back over to Illustrator. I'm not exactly sure what it's showing you guys. Probably still just Illustrator this whole time. Okay, so let's try this again. And it's not doing anything. So, okay, give me a second. And I'm going to quit out of Illustrator and then go back into it. Don't want to save any changes. Yes. And I'm actually going to switch screens for now and go over to my shop so that you can actually see a few of the different things that I've been talking about. So yeah, sorry, Abby. I don't know what Illustrator did. It's been acting up. I'm going to try and share a different window in a second and see if I can figure it out for you. Right now, I'm going to share my shop. So you should be able to see over here. These are the items in my shop, and I actually have a section for layers. So the one that we were looking at is actually this file, and you can see it's got it's out of 1/8 inch material, and I actually colored a bunch the same. So you can see, I believe it's got 7 layers to this. Oh, it's 5 layers per my listing. There you go. Let me open this back up in Illustrator if I can. And I'll pop that back to the main view so you can see it. And then I also have a really super easy one that you can do. And I need to. Oops. There, I think I have the window. There we go. I can drag it out so I can see what I'm doing. Maybe I should have rebooted before this. All right. Let me confirm what you guys are seeing. I apologize. I'm going to have to trim down this video before I actually post it. So, okay. So Illustrator's back up. So an hour ago. Here we go. So you can see on this, then it actually matches. Oops, there we go. It matches this listing. Oh, sorry, I need to switch it back. Okay, screen share back over to there. And you should be seeing Illustrator right now. And you should be able to see the listing that I was talking about, the actual art for it. So it's kind of different on paper, as it were, versus in person. So you can see all the different layers here. And right here, let me try turning off a layer again for you there. So you can see the top layer was dark red, which is represented by that layer right there. And then each one is represented in here by another layer, which I think I actually have 2 colors or 2 layers in a couple of these because they're the same color, or I've merged them. So basically my 5 layers is the back of the piece, which you can choose not to do. It's just a solid, or you can have it, to be anything you want. You can rainbow color it in the back. You can just have it be a lacy type of a thing where you don't actually see, you take the back out, you don't actually see that. And then all of this over here becomes windows. And let's see here. This is the part that I was discussing before that was talking about Sorry, I've got my mind in a million places. This is the part that I was saying was going to be an inlay. So you can see that there's the 4 layers there, with the 5th being the back layer. And I'll switch it back over to the picture again. And so now you can kind of get an idea by looking at it. I wish I could split share this easily. But you should be able to see that the top layer is that dark red, and then the rest of the layers I've actually made a copper so that they would just layer on top but not be too obvious, and then give us some shading. So you can see the shadow there is the cutouts on it are actually shading below to the next layer. And then I have a back of like an oil rubbed bronze for this one. And it kind of just sets it apart a little because it's not the same as any of the other colors being used, but it's also not a really bright color that'll take your attention away from all the detail in the file. So when we go back over to Illustrator, I'm going to close the, here we go. I'm going to close this file, and we're going to actually start with a new one. And Let's see how fast this goes. So new file. I like to do the basic Glowforge, and a lot of other systems now have it. It's the 19.2 by 10.8 at 72 DPI. And that'll be pretty much the standard for a lot of things. Glowforge requires 72 DPI. Lightburn actually does 96, so you have to convert it. But what we're gonna do now that this is up is we're gonna go to the shape tool. And if you haven't used the star tool before, yes, you can just do the 5-pointed star like that. Or one of the things you can do is you can say, okay, this is the center of my star here. And I want to do, let's keep it at 4 inches on the outside, because then that'll make it a nice ornament size. And we're going to go with the internal radius. Let's add a little circle inside that's 0.5. So we can put a gem or something if we want. And now the points where we see the 5 points here, we can actually go up to whatever number we want. So I'm going to go to 16, mainly because a nice even number will look better in the round for an ornament. And you can see we got that. So this is the beginning of our layered document. And I'm going to come in here. I'm going to find this circle. And I'm going to draw a circle out from that. And let's say we go something like this far. And that then is going to be another piece that we add in. I'm going to take the fill out of it just so we can see what we're doing. And let's go from there and make a couple, let's make at least one more circle. And that's at basically 2.5 right there. Okay, so I need to see if I need to do anything for Zoom. I just want to make sure, since people were waiting, and since you, Abby, were waiting in the waiting room before. Okay. So with this, then we have to decide what we want to make. So do we want to add another star in that then has a different shape compared to this star, which is kind of easy. I usually just do a copy and then a Control F to paste in front. And I'm going to resize this guy down just so we're still beyond that 2.5 inch, but I'm going to rotate it. That's a 45. What do we really want is a rotate offset. And if you don't do rotates all the time and you want to make sure it's perfect, you can actually use this tool for the rotate tool. You select the center and it actually helps you out there. The center is that light blue cerulean. Hold Alt, click the center, and you can choose what you decide to rotate it to. So in this case, if we wanted to do 12 degrees, then we're almost back to where we were. If we wanted to do 30, let's say, then you can do just a minor shift. So if you wanted something where you say, okay, I want to do 30 there, and let's copy. And then we're going to go back to this original star. We're going to rotate and then do 30 the other way. So in this case, then it's a -30 and offset it. So then this is where you can get some interesting design choices, design elements without doing a whole lot of work. So we're going to take these two guys and pull them down a little bit more. And now we have that 3 layer, and you can see the layering here is getting kind of interesting too. If we wanted to color it just to keep where we're at, what I would do right now, obviously I haven't been layering. We're going to add one more circle. And in this case, we're just going to Alt, Shift, and drag. Oops, that's not the right one. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. My brain is going nuts today. So I'm just going to do the same thing where I do my paste in place, and we're going to resize it the standard way. Okay, so all of these things are in layers already, even though you can't necessarily see them. For example, you can say, okay, on this, I can see that I'm above with this line. I'm above all of those other stars. Let's see if I can just get that. So I kind of like to assign colors to what I'm working with, and I'll do bright colors just because then I can actually see where they are versus having to guess. In this case, I'm going to give it probably a 8-inch stroke. And in this case, I can see, and I don't know if people have had this experience or not, but I tend to use the stroke in different ways. So in this case, you can see that the line I'm actually working from is here, but my stroke is only going in on one side. And that's actually something that you can go into the stroke window. I just clicked the stroke here right next to that in the dialog box for appearance. And you can see that right now it's selected align to the inside. So I could change it and align to the outside, but what I really want to do is align to the center. And then that way it's your standard stroke. That's usually what it starts out with. In this case, we're going to go with that. This circle here is going to get the same treatment. So we eyedropper and collect it. And the same with this guy. And now it's actually obvious. You can see that this circle is above everything. This circle is below these stars, but above this star. And then this circle is only above that star. So if you wanted to do something where you're starting kind of a woven process in your layered document, then you could start making that happen. And then once you get to the actual combining them all together and making the paths, you can choose to kind of do a basket weave or something else along that line. So what we're talking about today, just so now we've kind of gotten the ground rules down. I'm going to move this over. I think that has promise, but I also started off with circles with way too much lines. Sorry, way too skinny lines, not too many. So we're going to go back to my shop. And I'm going to try and find one of the other ones that I've made. It's actually a flower that is easier. And let me look. Okay. Oh dear. Let's go back to layers. Text and wall layers. Aha, there it is. Sorry. I have this other one here. This is actually a really pretty one that I worked on. And I actually have it where you can see it's got this really thin outline that then tops off all of these layers here inside the design. We're not going to get that complicated today, but what I am going to do is go to this guy. Now, this one you can see is all the same flower. And one of the things that's really neat about it is you can make this look different with how you align the flower versus going back and trying to make an interesting new layer for each layer that you do. So you can see sometimes people do, or like that first document that I showed you, people will do a mandala, and then they'll add in like another layer that's some sort of floral, and then they'll add in another layer that's like a plaid, and they get pretty tricky on it. But this is really just so pretty because of its simplicity. You have the shape, which I'm going to see here, which picture actually shows it better. There. So when I did this one, this was for a friend for Pride. So when I did this one, you can see it's all the same shape. It's just different colors and they're just laid on top of each other. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different layers. And it's pretty because it's got the colors all through it. And I believe that's okay. No, that's similar, but that's aligned differently. So in this case, then this one is just offset. So every other floral layer, instead of being aligned like this one is just offset every other layer. So you can see that in the petal tips where it just kind of goes back and forth. And the having them all be in the same color then makes it really show off the lines of the piece versus showing off the rainbow effect. In this case, this is actually the bottom of one of the alignments. Yeah, this looks like it's also the top down, but this is the bottom up. And you can see how it creates these channels down. So if you think about it that way, you're getting something really pretty that looks really complicated from this side, but then looks super simple from this side. So it's all in how you present it. You can choose to do this and then cut off the weight of the interior, or support, like once you have those these layers of the design right here, you can then pull a design out that comes this way, and you can extend it so that it actually shows up out here outside the petals of this flower. And I think I have one more alignment. Okay, that's all aligned. Oh, and then this case, this is that I shifted every layer with the petals. So it actually creates one big flower, but each petal is actually kind of coming down in the swoop because it's aligned on the petal edge versus aligned in the center. So this, to me, I really like the look of this. I don't think I took a back picture of this, and this is the piece that I have somewhere from my taking photos, and just because I like it. I'll have to make another one and take some more photos to update here. Okay, so we're gonna switch back to Illustrator, and we are going to make our own flower. And it's actually gonna be, see, before it was kind of a daisy look. So what we're going to do this time is I'm going to make a 4-inch circle. And this I'm actually going to, after I drag it to the center, I'm going to lock. This is going to be a guide for us. I'm going to color it something so it's an easy guide. And then Control 2 will lock it in place for us. And this means that we can't select it while we're working on other things. So a good thing about this is we can actually just draw our own petal. So I'm going to take the pen tool, which is P. I'm going to go to the center that it's so helpfully showing me. And I'm going to go to the straight up, hold shift, straight up to the outside edge. and make a line. I'm going to hit V to give us the black arrow. And then this makes it the first start that we're going to do. When I come back in, I'm going to use A, the white arrow. And we're actually going to, sorry, I'm going to do Shift C and get handles on it. And by doing that, I can actually come up with something that is a petal shape that I like. And we're kind of going to go reverse here. Since everything is always kind of a tip out, we're going to go with a rounded one with a tip in. There. So in this case, I think we'll probably just come back to this bottom and we'll go a little bit beyond the circle and finish it out. And you can see if I drag, then I can also have the handle there to finish the curve. So there we have it. And I'm going to go ahead and just color that. Oh, here, it'd help if I was on that one. I'm going to color that inside. So now that we have this, we can go back up to rotate. It gives us, in this case, it gives us the center, but you can't easily see it. And we're going to go to the center and we're going to tell it to do. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I try to say what I'm using every time, and because I'm so used to using it, and I know a lot of people aren't, and I call them by kind of colloquial names versus actually the, like the A tool, the white arrow is actually the direct selection tool. So it's easier for me. I just say the white arrow, or A. And okay, so we're going to get back to this, and instead of doing 30 degrees, we're going to do 15. And you can see it's going this way. So if we do 15 and copy it, then you can see what it's going to look like. I personally think that this looks like it's not going to have any space compared to the previous designs that we were looking at. So I'm going to undo. And I'm going to come back, oops, rotate. And with the rotate, I think I said you use Alt when you select this, and you can kind of see it right there. It gives you this teeny little target that's the cyan target. And that shows you where the center is every time that you're using it. One of the key things to remember when you're using rotate is you won't be able to move around while you're in the rotate dialog box. Same thing happens when you do the flip, which is also in this same tool, the reflect tool, sorry. So you want to make sure if you want to see the result of what you're doing in the preview, then you actually have to be able to see it before you do it, if that makes sense. You have to see the whole area. So now we're going to rotate, and I think, see, we did 45 before. It keeps defaulting to the last one I used. So the reason why it's showing 30 is because I did that on the other document. So now I haven't yet actually used the 45 that I've been entering, but then once I do use a new number, it's going to default to that every time I use it now until I change that number again. I'm going to go to 60, which seems like it's big, but I think it's actually, if you look at there, it's going to give us a good gap. So I undid, so I'm going to redo that again. And I'm going to copy this time. There. So this is kind of getting a pinwheel. Now, oops, I shouldn't have done that. Edit, redo. The key thing here, and what I accidentally deselected, is that once you do it once, if you hit Control D for duplicate, it will actually do the rest of the work for you. So it'll go around and do every move, whatever the movement was before. So if you have a piece of, let's say here, I'll draw a circle over here. If I take that circle and I use Alt and drag, then I can keep doing this all the way across the document if I want to, just by hitting Control D. So it really helps when you're doing patterns. It's one of those things that I don't think a lot of people talk about when you're doing design work, but it helps immeasurably, because then that way you're not actually having to deal with pulling guides for all of these lines. And you don't have to try and make sure that you're getting an even gap between everything, because you know it's going to be exactly the same every time. I'm going to delete that since we're working on the flower here. Now this could be our bottom layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste basically at the front. It's Control F. You can also do paste in the back, Control B. I shouldn't have. Oops, sorry. Control copy. Control F. And then now I'm going to color that something else so that we can see it when we go by. All right, so this is the same case. We're going to do the rotate. We're going to come in here, Alt. We're going to hit the center. And we're going to do another 60. And I'm not getting a dialog box with that. It should have done. So maybe maybe I did something wrong here. So let's go back to green. Let's try this again. I'm having a rough day over here. I did a full hour yesterday and everything went great, so I must have jinxed myself for today. We already went 60, so we're going to go 30. And we're going to copy. There we go. So now we're going to take these and we're going to color them red like we did before. So in this case, you've already done the heavy lifting. You've already made all the different petals and now you're just making another set. Now, I think this is a great base layer, and what we can do so that it looks a little more fancy is, instead of leaving them a solid, which you can do, we are going to go in and we're going to select all of them, and we're going to, oops, that's right, doesn't like it if they're different colors. So we're going to flip this to a stroke. For some reason, I have a red underneath there too. So we'll get rid of that. So this guy is going to be a stroke, and you can see over here it's filled white from the default that Illustrator starts with. And yeah, I must have duplicated extra layers there. No biggie. So basically what I'm going to do is come through and clean out that extra set of petals I made. It's easier than doing all the way back to try and figure it out. Okay, so now what you can do, assuming we want to keep the color so that you can define it for yourself as we go on, we're going to just use the eyedropper. It's the letter I, and this pulls the actual look from what you selected with the eyedropper. It's going to be the same here. We're going to go from a red fill. We're going to eyedropper, and it's going to go to a red stroke instead. So now, since we're working in something that's going to be a laser cutter, we're going to apply a thickness to this so that when we outline the stroke, then we have a nice shape that's going to hold up when we go to actually cut it out with the laser. So this stroke, I'm going to just go up to like 8 point here. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to resize this down some, because we had our 4-inch circle so that it would be an ornament. So I'm going to pull that down a little. And it looks like, yeah, it looks like we got offset somehow from that circle from the beginning. So we'll go with this. So for now, then what we would do is we could take this go back to layers and create a new layer. Lock the previous. So now you can't affect anything on that layer, and we're going to paste in place. So you can't see anything when you make a change because it's on top of, actually, did it paste yet? That's a bad trick. Okay. There we go. It didn't paste anything. All right, so you can see that's the base layer because it's got the circle for the guide. And once you turn off the eyeball on that, then you can see each layer separately. So with this one, since we already have our base shape and everything, we just want to pull it in some. I'm just going to eyeball this myself. And I'm going to do, this is basically the black arrow. So it's direct selection. If you notice, what the black arrow does is it selects the whole piece. The white arrow actually will select the line or the anchor in the piece. So there's reasons for both of them. And getting used to how you're using it will make you get a little bit more adept in how you work in the future. So I'm going to pull this in with Alt and Shift, and that constrains it from the center, and it constrains it to the square. If I was just only with Alt, it would constrain it to the center, but I could do anything I want like that. I'm going to undo. And if I constrained it with Shift, it would go to the opposite corner of whichever side I'm on. So you can see the differences there. So I want to make sure it's from the center, it's from all sides, and we're going to pull in about that much. And so now you're going to see how it's going to start to make an interesting pattern. Personally, I think that we should go for something a little more offset. So I'm going to just tweak these to line up. Actually, I'm going to change the color on these because then that way we can see what we're doing here. And I'm going to tweak these so that we're lining up basically on the curve instead of the back. Now, this is kind of an odd shape compared to what I was using in my other files. So you're not going to get it as kind of as interesting easily, but we'll keep working with it. So now we're going to copy this again. And this is our 2 layer, and we're going to add in the 3rd layer, lock the bottoms, select our 3rd layer, Control F, which pastes in front. Now we're going to pick another color. Let's go with pink. And when we rotate this, there we go. Sorry, we're going to size it in first. And then we're going to rotate it in a little bit, just like we did last time. So, come on, there we go. So you can kind of start seeing this process taking place. And, you know, this isn't hard. This is actually something that you can easily do with any shape you think of. And then you keep making layers. Like in this case, I'm making another layer, paste in front. Of course, I didn't actually copy it, I guess. So copy. I move too fast for myself sometimes. Paste in front. Okay, and then we're going to change the color again. And honestly, I've done stuff where I've run out of colors and then I've had to start doing shifts of color. So you can see the shade here is different than kind of the basic greens that you use. And we're going to pull this aside. And then I'm going to scale it down. I think That's about right. I don't think I did the paint quite enough. And we're kind of getting almost a succulent feel to this. And as we keep going, it's going to start overlapping that petal even more. So we'll be able to see where this goes. I'm going to copy this, lock my layer, add a new layer, paste in front. We're going to change the color again. Let's go back to an orange. It never looks like orange to me. It always looks like kind of flamingo, doesn't it? I guess flamingos eat shrimp that then have that kind of orangey pink. So here we go. We're going to gap down and we're going to gap over. Oops, that needs to be a little bit further down, I think. There, we're going to copy that. And we've made 5 layers now, as you can see, just kind of doing the same thing over and over. Okay, so I'm going to paste in front, pick another layer. Let's do cerulean this time. We're going to size it down. And then rotate it. Yeah, that needs to be sized a little bit more. I'm probably off a little bit on these numbers. So you can see like this one didn't gap as much as the rest should have. So if you're doing it yourself, then you can probably just, it gives you the amount that you've turned. So you can see like right there, it's changing the degree that I'm at. So you can see if you want to do an additional however many degrees that you just actually it's that way that it helps. It adds on and tells you which way as you go that way. So I guess I kind of picked the wrong way. But it'll have these measurement tools that will tell you this as you go. So it's actually super helpful in that regard. And I guess you just want to do counterclockwise instead. Let's pick another color. Blue. We're going to size this down and pull it over. And I'd say we're getting close to a center here. I can add one more, and then I think what we probably want to do is add kind of a guideline for something like a gem or some other ornament that would go in the center. We could also cut it all the way out, much like the file that I showed you in my shop, where it's got the center going all the way down. So it's really up to you. If you wanted to do that, then you'd rasterize each layer and just cut the same thing out on every layer as you go. Rasterize meaning just making it, sorry, not rasterize. Basically turning it into a shape versus having live lines. I tend to think of it as kind of flat after that. So I apologize. Rasterizing is actually making it into an image that you don't have any vector control over, which is not what we're doing at all. Let's see here. We are there, copy, and here's our 8th layer. Paste in front. And you'll see also the color of the layer is showing here, and it correlates to the color of the layer right here. So if you're ever wondering why it is that your lines change color, that's the reason why, is it's giving you a color right there that it assigns to each layer as you create them. So you can choose to use that color, just keep them together, or just basically, if you're using the same colors throughout, then when you select them, you can know which layer they're on easily when you come back over here. And I'm going to pull this guy down. Yeah, we're getting pretty small here. I'm going to change the color. Let's go back. Did we do yellow? Let's do yellow. Yeah, and so that's pretty much a solid right there. So that'll be our cap at the top of this whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all on this because we like the shape of it and it's going to mimic everything around it. And I'm going to go up to Object, Path, and Outline Stroke. That'll give us the shape of each one. And then now we're going to go to Properties and Pathfinder and Unite. And that's going to make a single shape for us out of those 6 pieces I think we made, or 8 pieces. And you can see that it's got the curve there, the straight line. So it looks perfect. Almost looks like a saw blade, doesn't it? So yeah, I think we would want to add one more layer, and this would just be a guide. So in this case, we don't need to copy or paste our previous layer. All we want to do is say, let's come in here to the center, and you can see it's very helpful. It tells you where your intersecting is, and you can get the actual full, let me get there. Of course, now it's not going to do it for me. Anyway, you can go to this and you know you're at the center of the whole thing. Now, when I'm pulling out, this is 0.21, which is basically a quarter of an inch. 0.25 is a quarter of an inch. So if you think about that, that's a good sized gem. And I think that's something that you would normally be able to find in a jewelry pack from Michael's or something. So you can always just top it off, and you can do anything you want on this because your top piece is a solid. Doesn't have to be a gem. It can be you doing hand drawing. It can be other stuff. Heck, you can do all the edges in glitter. There's so many options with this. So let's see here. Once we do that, I'm going to recolor that out to, let's use this pea green. And we're done. So now you actually have kind of a pretty flower that is very similar to, I'm going to go back over here. Very similar to this flower in my shop without doing too much work. In this case, you can see that I actually started out with a teardrop and I just duplicated the teardrop so it overlapped for that first layer. And then I just made more as we went all the way out. And it might be easier to see if I flip it back over. So that might actually be harder to see. That's kind of easy. So yeah, there's the teardrop. It's the top point with the rounded shape and just overlapping each other by about a third all the way around. So it gives it a really interesting shape that is super simple. It's just because it's repeated that it makes it interesting. So I think I've covered everything pretty well with this. So I've shown you a file for a previous design. I've shown you the design itself. And then now I've created a new design that you can actually use the techniques from to make your own design. Do you have any questions? Okay. I don't see Abby and oh, there we go. It's a little bit delayed. No, you're very welcome. And like I said, I'll be doing these on Wednesdays. So take a peek at the calendar whenever it works for you. Just go ahead and sign up for them. And then I always post these after. So if you miss one, you can always get it on my YouTube channel. And I'm going to go ahead and close it out. And thanks, Abby, so much for your time as well.